Here's the way this story goes. And I wrote a book on it. No one had ever written a book on it, so I decided to do some research. After 10 years, I finally got a book and put it together. And while I'm writing that book, I'm really learning the history of this entire region. Now, this whole story starts about 1870. The Army was still fighting Apaches out here. And they needed a trail from where their camp was. The camp is over 5,000 feet in elevation, and it's up this way and over to the right towards Globe, about 8 miles from the top of this mountain. This, by the way, is King's Crown Mountain. King's Crown is what it was called. And there actually is, and I can point out to you later, a crown on this mountain. And there actually is a crown on the mountain. And it's right there, as a matter of fact. If you look at it, in that where that white rock is, and you look above it, and you see some other dirt, rock different colored, and on top of that, you'll see 3 prongs from a king's crown. And that thing actually sits 300 feet, or 300 yards rather, away from the mountain. Well, anyhow, it's King's Crown Mountain, 1870, where the United States is fighting the Apaches, and they're trying to put them on reservations. The soldiers come out here in 1870, and they're assigned to General Stoneman, and he's out here in 1870 to fight. He was a Civil War veteran. He was a major general in the Civil War. He was an engineer, by the way, not a cavalryman. Anyhow, they're putting a camp up this road here, and on way about 8 miles when you get top of that hill, it's about 8 miles toward Globe, east of here. And that's where the soldiers are going to be quartered, 400 of them. But the Apaches are down here, coming from Tucson, from Florence, from the Pima villages over there out west, and they have to find a way to get from there down to here. So Stoneman, being an engineer, gets his captain, and they get a group of men, and they start building this road all the way from Signal Peak Mountain, which is over there, around here, 8 miles to here, and from here all the way to Picket Post Mountain, which is out that direction. On top of Picket Post and on Signal Peak, they had heliographs. And they would, down there from Signal Peak, they could see as far as Tucson on a clear day, and they could see the dust trails coming through the desert, and they could tell you, those soldiers could tell you how many Indians were in the group. And they had binoculars, great big ones, and they would look. And so they would send by Morse code on the heliograph to Signal Peak to start some soldiers down. So many Apaches are coming, so many Indians are coming back. So they send them down this road once they got the road built, and then on down that direction. And then the soldiers down below could see the flashing mirrors, and somebody who was in the Signal Corps in the Army would interpret for them. And they said, well, we got to go east, we got to go west, and we're going to meet them up right about here. So that's what they did. That's the way it was. And so this road, in its building of this road, there was a soldier named John Sullivan. John Sullivan found some pieces of black rock, and he broke them. He didn't know what he had. And he showed some soldiers who had been miners, and he said, well, that's silver. That's high-grade silver. Boy, where'd you find that? And he wouldn't tell them, see. Because in those days, you had to share with the men in your group, and you had to share with the commanding officers. Everybody got a share of your claim. So Sullivan didn't want to share that and spread that money out. He didn't know how much in silver was there, or gold, or whatever. So he kept it quiet. And so about 1873, Sullivan musters out of the Army. And he takes a job with a fellow by the name of Charlie Mason over by Florence, working at his ranch, his farm over there. Charlie Mason has a brother that's an engineer, and brother had done a lot of things. He had been in the Secret Service, and right after they created that, after the killing of Lincoln, and he had worked in mines as a mining engineer. So he wanted to come down here, and Charlie Mason says, well, let us find what's up there yet. And finally, they couldn't get John Sullivan to tell them exactly where it was, but Sullivan was broke, and he had no clothes, and he didn't have a mule or a horse. So they traded him an animal, and they gave him some clothes and boots. Didn't have boots, good boots, and some money for a clue for where they thought the mine was, the high-grade mine was. So they got this knowledge, and they searched, and they couldn't find it. They couldn't find it. And they did know that out at Globe, they were mining silver, lead, and Globe. The Globe ledges is what they called them. So one day in 1875, early March of 1875, they go to Globe and they start mining. And when they get enough high grade, they load up their mules and they come back. And the way they're coming back to go to Florence is the Stoneman grade. The trail's already there. So they're taking it. And when they're at the top at a spring, year-round water at this spring, they were attacked by Apaches. It's March 21st, 1875. They killed that man. And at the location where they killed him, there were these ovens, stone ovens, where bakers for the Army made bread every day. See, on this trail when the Army was here, there were mule chains coming by every week. And they were delivering big loads of flour and other supplies for the soldiers. Well, they're coming down there and they said, well, wait a minute. After this, you know, when something that with that much trauma occurs in someone's life, they have a tendency to remember things. And everything becomes sharp and focused, and they remembered things they wish they'd done, things about other people, and things that people said. And one of those four that are left say, hey, wait a minute. Sullivan said that it was on the grade, and there was the largest boulder on the grade, and the little brown hill a stone's throw. Well, let's see if we can find one of those. Well, there's nothing but little brown hills all the way from the mountain, all the way down a picket post, okay? But this part up here is called the grade. The rest of it's called the Stoneman Trail. So this part coming down here, it's about a mile, and the grade. And they said, so they're coming down, and they're little brown hills, they're checking them. And they looked over in this direction. They see this boulder. The brush, they come through the brush and they see the boulder up there. The trail goes right past this rock formation over here, which became the Glory Hole. That's the little brown hill. So they throw a stone as far as they can. In those days, believe it or not, soldiers played baseball, okay? They played baseball, and miners played baseball. Anyhow, a guy that could, I guess, had the best arm, throws a rock over here to this little, yeah, he can get to this brown hill. They come over, climb over top. Laying right on the top of it is high-grade silver. And they said, this is the place. This is it. So they unload the mules with the silver lead, they dump it out, and they fill up their sacks with this high-grade silver, and they go to Florence. They get an assayer to look at the ore, and the assayer says, boys, this is great. This silver is great. This ore is great. You got a king of a mine here. He said, that's what we'll call it. We'll call it the Silver King. And so they filed a claim on it with the new county of Pinell County, and in the book, and I actually have a copy of that original claim called the Silver King. They called it the Silver King. So they come back and put their stakes out, and they stake out around it. And you can't keep that a secret then, okay? Everybody's following these guys, all right? So they come back during the night, and first light, they started making some other claims, and they did file over the hill. They found another vein of high-grade silver copper down over the hill, and they named that one the Silver Queen. But the next thing you know, there's 1,000 claims out here. So they said, time to start working, boys. And so on that brown hill, they dig. They figured this is where the high grade is. But no, at the glory hole, they dig down, and they go down 70 to 75 feet, and they miss the vein. The vein comes like this. So they cut down through here, and they passed the vein. They said, uh-oh, what happened? So they got some engineers, and the engineer says, we believe from what we've seen that the high-grade ore body's over here, this distance. So what they did was they came over this way underground, and they went right there, and then they cross-cut the high-grade vein right here, and then they dug up from there. They dropped the rock from the top of the shaft that they were digging, dropped it down, and they hauled it out by buckets. And eventually, what they did was they dug a shaft. And where they're digging this shaft, this is almost pure lumps of metal. And that's how rich that ore was that they were bringing out.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.